Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, Indiana leaders travel the world to attract new jobs. The Hoosier Lottery celebrates 30 years. The Indiana Chamber and Anthem look to lower insurance premiums. We spotlight a Grant County Aviation Academy. Plans continue to take shape for the 2021 NBA All-Star Game in Indianapolis. And our panel of insiders provides perspective on the top stories of the week. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. Governor Eric Holcomb has wrapped up an economic development trip to China and India, visiting business and government leaders and cheering on the Pacers during their preseason games in Mumbai. India and China-based companies support around 3,500 jobs in Indiana. Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger joined Inside Indiana Business host Gary Dick to talk about the trips.
We'll get right to it. A lot of travel, a lot of miles visiting in those destinations. Interesting insights you have. You talked about a meeting with Prime Minister Modi of India, yes, which really was kind of an exclusive opportunity. Talk about that, the discussion, and what went on between the governor, you, and the Prime Minister.
The governor is laser focused on taking Indiana to the world and bringing the world to Indiana every day. And he says the winners are the ones that show up to play. So we were granted an audience with Prime Minister Modi, and we were taken back at how well he knew Indiana. And of course, he coined the governor's phrase, you can't even spell Indiana if you don't start with India. But he knew our background, he knew our educational background, he knew our history of sports statewide, and he basically campaigned on three things. The first thing was on expanding their cultural reach, their educational reach, and also on sports. As a health thing, they have 1.3 billion people in the country, and he wants to be more than just a cricket state. So he basically asked the governor if the Indiana would partner with all of our different leaders in sports, college and professional, amateur sports, if we would partner with him, knowing that we get the NBA All-Star, we have the NCAA here, partner with them specifically to help him develop his vision for India in sports, which is probably the highest honor we could get. And I thank a lot of the city leaders and state leaders that had that vision back in the 80s, which he pointed out.
Yeah, interesting. And I think reflective of Indiana's growing global profile, not just in India, but the reception you've gotten in some of these other countries kind of brought that home as well.
Magnificent. And it's interesting, everywhere we went, of course, in the Asian countries of South Korea and Japan and China and India, there are issues, there are challenging issues economically. And we talked about, we always embrace the opportunities when we have really prosperous collaborative times, and we endure the difficulties and the challenges of when we have economic times like we are today. But as a global community, we know this is all going to work out, and every one of them thought it was very significant that the governor took the time to come during these times.
Talk about deals coming. These trips, a lot of it's relationship building, for existing companies you already have doing business here in the state, but also new relationships as well as you look at the potential for new investment, new companies coming out of them.
Yeah, we had over 75 meetings, and about 25% of those was for government and embassy people. The rest were for businesses. We met with businesses investing in Indiana to thank them. They had 49 other choices. We met with our Indiana businesses overseas, but we always bring back trips. We'll bring back 3, 4, 5 trips from this. We just recently announced Gordon Foods yesterday, and Gordon Foods is a company in Westfield, 400 jobs, $160 million capex. Solier, we visited with Hitachi. They told us when we were there they were going to increase Solier up in northwest Indiana. eHealth, when we visited California, they made the announcement a week later, 500 new employees at a $10 million cap up in upper north side of Indianapolis. And Toyota Princeton. When we were in Toyota having dinner at Toyota headquarters, they announced they were going to expand the Princeton plant by 600 people and put a $1 billion investment. Yeah. So when we show up, our batting average soars.
Yeah, so these trips, and you took along with you a number of mayors and other representatives from around the state, these are of increasing importance when it comes to economic development. It's not just focused here on Indiana, the Midwest, the U.S., but really the globe.
Absolutely. We are a global economy, and the world gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and so we hit all 49 other states. Sometimes we act as a nation. Sometimes we act as individual states, and this is a full contact sport. And I go all over the country to the other 49 and all around the world. Because again, we want to build our state economically and from workforce outside in. Gary, we had 31,800 people migrate to Indiana last year for jobs. It's the first time, it's 2 years in a row we've had in-migration, but 31,800 to come for our workforce program.
And good to see that those numbers turn around. Very, very important. Very quickly, Routes America Conference is coming up. The possibility, 50-plus nonstops now at the airport, a record number, but you really feel that this really big conference can potentially lead to maybe more activity.
This is transformational. To have over 1,000 people come, route planners from 80 airlines, 300 international airports, and 50 tourism authorities. They're all going to come to the #1 airport in North America, go to the #1 convention center. And I think it's fair to say that we're in negotiations right now for 4 additional nonstop direct flights overseas.
All right. Well, we'll follow up with that, on you with that as well. Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger, as always, thanks for joining us. Go home and get some rest.
Thank you, Gary.
Talk to you soon.
Still to come, the Hoosier Lottery celebrates its 30th anniversary, and small Hoosier companies could get some insurance relief. But first, Genesys says it powers more than 25 billion customer experiences each year for more than 10,000 companies in over 100 countries. The company also recently won PowderKeg's top-rated Social Impact Award. Vice President of Corporate Affairs Todd Peterson came in studio to talk about the honor and more.
Genesys acquired Interactive Intelligence about 3 years ago. Give us the Genesys model, what it's all about.
Very good. Well, it was a terrific run. With Interactive Intelligence, we've had 25 years of history on this site. Genesys has come in with a lot of energy. We have a much larger global footprint. As you said, we have 11,000 customers around the globe, and access to a lot more resources now than we've ever had before. So it's a broader customer base, a more global customer base, and just a lot more energy in the company. Yeah,
a California-based company, their largest footprint though here in Indiana, and you also have a new CEO, Tony Bates. Right?
Yeah, and he's incredible. Tony Bates comes to us via a long and wonderful history. I mean, he was executive at Cisco, at Microsoft. He was the CEO of Skype, and he was also the president of GoPro cameras. So he's played on the B2B and the B2C side. He has done a significant org adjustment and leadership adjustment inside. And we're starting to feel a lot of positive momentum with the employees.
Big part of your business, the business at Genesys, social impact winner at the recent PowderKeg Breakout Tech Awards. Big focus on inclusiveness and inclusion in the workplace, diversity in the workplace. Why is that important?
Well, that was a wonderful award, and we're a big fan of PowderKeg and Matt Hunkler's team. We were thrilled to win the Social Impact Award. It means a great deal to our employees. We have a lot of curious, very bright workforce, and they love to give back. They love to serve as mentors. That award means a lot because we've been so intentional about the focus in terms of what we do in our corporate social responsibility programs. And so it means an awful lot to us.
And you've got to be very intentional about doing those things, which takes effort. I know you're involved, the company is, with Project Indy, the inclusion initiative by Mayor Hogsett, the city, chamber, and others. It's something that's the right thing to do, but also I'm sure it benefits from a talent standpoint, be able to attract and keep talent as well.
Absolutely. I mean, the critical tenet for us of our culture is that we respect and value the variety of backgrounds and individuals, despite their geography or generation, and that is the foundation of the core of our culture. That the diversity and inclusion piece, as you come in the front door in Indianapolis, Indiana, and you can maintain this Hoosier lifestyle, but you walk in the front door and you're immediately open to a global workforce.
Yeah.
So,
Genesys is the company, more than 800 employees, and the social impact winner of PowderKeg's Breakout Tech Awards. Todd Peterson, great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And look forward to having you back soon.
Yep, I enjoyed it.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Later in the podcast, we spotlight the Chamber Care Health Initiative, as well as a Grant County flight school. But now, the Hoosier Lottery turns 30 this month. In fiscal 2019, the lottery has transferred $312 million to the state of Indiana for several initiatives. Executive Director Sarah Taylor joined us to talk about the milestone.
This brings back memories.
It
I
does.
do remember the launch of the lottery. I was in the day-to-day news business at that time, and it was a big deal. And we have some video, I know, of those big lines and the scratch-off tickets, the Hoosier Lottery game, which was a popular TV show.
That's right. Hoosier Millionaire
Yeah.
was on from 1989 to 2005.
Yeah.
We made 191 millionaires on that show.
That's amazing.
Isn't that awesome?
That is amazing. And the changes over the years. I mean, you go back to those days 30 years ago. I think one of the biggest changes is certainly technology and how you've leveraged technology at the lottery.
Yes, in the old days, you would walk into the retailer and they would look at the scratch off by sight to see if you were a winner. Now you can see if you're a winner on the mobile app we have for free.
Yeah. And that is, I assume, technology like in any business, it's very much needed and necessary, but it's a challenge. You got to be very intentional about keeping up with that, with the technology. So how important is technology now to the lottery, the business of the lottery?
Well, the heart of our business is security and integrity and people's belief that we're running fair games. And so technology plays a huge role in that and will in the future too.
Yeah. As you look at changes over the years and the things that have changed for the lottery, one thing that hasn't changed is the impact on the state. Billions with a B of money that you've contributed to the state of Indiana. Talk about where that money goes.
That's right. So $6 billion to the state of Indiana over these past 30 years. Every year, $30 million to our police and pension, police pension and firefighter pension, $30 million to the teacher retirement fund, all remaining dollars then annually into what was known as the Build Indiana Fund, which really offsets the motor vehicle excise tax for every Hoosier.
Yeah. You talk about sales, you wonder 30 years later, is it still popular? Last year, $1.3 billion in
Yes.
sales, which was a record, right?
Yes.
What's the key? What do you have to do to stay relevant in the minds of consumers?
You said it right there, stay relevant. You have to have engaging games. You have to launch new games. You have to have licensed properties like on the scratch-offs. We did a Walking Dead ticket, the Indianapolis Colts, et cetera. So you have to dial it up and change your games and find out what the public really wants.
What's next, especially as you look at the marketplace? So 30 years ago, you could say it was competitive, but there weren't nearly as many competitors for consumers. And now you've got online sports gambling and all the different options that are out there. How does that impact the lottery?
Well, we're waiting to see how it's all going to impact us, but we're competing for the entertainment dollar, and that's important in our business to stay engaging. Like I said, we are looking to the future, and in our annual business plan, our partner IGT Indiana will be studying, for example, iLottery. You know, whether one day does it make sense to have a portion of your business online. You know, but we're looking at that cautiously, and it'll be a recommendation from them at some point down the road. It takes a lot of research, and not too many states are doing it yet.
All right, we'll be interested to watch that. The Hoosier Lottery, 30 years, a big milestone. Sarah Taylor, the executive director, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Remember, you can catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check listings. Still to come, an aviation academy takes flight in Grant County, and preparations continue for the NBA All-Star Weekend in Indy. But first, the Indiana Chamber of Commerce and Anthem have been partners on Chamber Care Health Insurance Solutions for 15 years. They have now announced Chamber Care Health Alliance, allowing smaller companies access to lower premium rates generally only available to larger organizations. Chamber Vice President Tom Schumann and Anthem Vice President Joe Gilbert joined Kylie Valletta in the business of health.
So we mentioned in the introduction, this is being characterized as a game changer. So Joe, we'll start with you. Why is this such a big deal for small companies?
Well, the number one thing I hear from small employers throughout the state is just the need for more affordable health insurance options. So we're very excited to leverage really the association health plan rules and our partnership with the Indiana Chamber to be able to offer a new, much more affordable product that really is going to help small businesses save money on their health insurance costs.
And important to note, this is statewide, not just focused in Indianapolis. So Tom, we were talking off camera, and you said the two most common things the Chamber hears from its members are workforce issues and healthcare costs for insurance. So why did the Chamber really want to do this for small companies, and what are some of the other benefits of this program?
Well, as you said in your introduction, this is the continuation of a 15-year partnership between the Chamber and Anthem, and that those products have evolved over the years as the rules have changed, but it's really been focused on affordable health care coverage. One of the additional benefits this time is all participants get a membership in the Wellness Council of Indiana. Wellness Council has tremendous benefits, assessment programs, best practices, so they can help employers improve the overall health and productivity of their workforce, eventually leading to lower healthcare costs down the road.
And so, Joe, this is a relatively new model, but Anthem has done this in other states?
Yeah, so we've been very successful with this model. We've rolled it out in Ohio, Missouri, Kentucky, and Georgia, and we've done very, very well with it. And that was a big advantage for us here in Indiana, as we were able to take lessons learned and really apply them and make it a smooth process to launch it here for the Hoosier State.
So, Tom, do you think, from the Chamber's perspective, does this make Indiana an even more attractive place to do business?
We think it does, but you mentioned before that what we hear from employers is not surprisingly the shortage of talent these days, and also that uncertainty around healthcare. But think about it this way: if this program can help reduce healthcare costs, that allows an employer maybe to shift some resources, and it could be those small things that could help retain some employees or even attract new employees. So anything that goes to that better workplace culture and helping meet those talent needs is good for the state.
Well, it kind of helps shift the bottom line for the
Absolutely.
companies. And Joe, we mentioned rolled this out in mid-August, so it's been out for a little while. What kind of response are you getting? What are you hearing?
Yeah, so we started quoting it on August 19th. For October 1st was the first effective date so you could have it. It's available in all 92 counties, and it's sold through insurance brokers. You can go to anthem.com for info. But we've had really tremendous response, and the volume of quote requests and really the amount of information that's been driven to us has been beyond what we expected.
And I know you're really excited about this program, Tom. So if you could really boil it down, what is the Chamber most excited about offering this to small companies?
Well, again, and we said small companies. This is for organizations with between 2 and 50 employees. So it's so critical for them. They're the ones that need assistance. They don't have all the resources in-house to know how to navigate the complexity of the healthcare market. So again, the partnership, the great resources at Anthem, that's what really makes it so beneficial for Chamber members.
All right. Well, thank you both for being here and telling us more about the program. I know so many small companies helping support Indiana business, so we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Later in the podcast, Indy's NBA All-Star Planning Committee tips off a new effort, and our Insiders panel takes on the top stories of the week. But now, the Marion Regional Career Center is offering area high school students the chance to attend an aviation academy. 2-year programs are available in aviation flight operations and aviation mechanics. Instructor Scott Simpson and student Emma Jacobs joined us for our Eye on Education segment.
Scott, I'll start with you. I think this is a great example of getting creative, of collaborations addressing workforce issues. We talk a lot about the shortages in the aviation field, be it in the technical area or in the pilot area. Talk about this program and really how it works.
So the program was basically a dream of the president of the Board of Aviation Commissioners and one of our school board members at the time, realizing that there was a shortage and there is going to be a continued shortage in the aviation industry. And having the facility out at the airport just kind of sitting there, right. The conversation turned to what could we do to help our students get into this high-wage, high-demand career.
Yeah, the jobs that pay above the average wage. And talk about the different areas, because it's all different areas of aviation.
It is.
Right?
So obviously, when you talk about aviation, pilot is the first word that comes out of people's mouths, but also air traffic control. People don't realize the mandatory retirement age there is 55. And so the air traffic control is looking for students, the aviation maintenance, mechanics. Somebody's got to maintain the aircraft and put those together. And then there's the operations piece, running the airports and helping the airlines make sure pilots fall within their hour limits and the scheduling piece of it.
Yeah. So Emma, you're on a path now for a career in aviation, but when you first heard about this program, you really had no interest in aviation,
no,
right?
No, I didn't at all. I heard about it through somebody coming from Marion High School Career Center to my local high school, and I just wanted to try something new.
Yeah. Now, as you got into this, you thought maybe you wanted to be a pilot, right?
Yeah.
But you actually
Yes.
kind of changed direction.
Yeah, I had flew a few times, and I liked it, but I don't think I could have made a career out of it.
Yeah.
So then I started searching for other careers, and I found aviation management, and that led me to getting an internship at the airport.
Yeah, and I should mention briefly, we were talking about that. You've really spearheaded a solar project.
Yes.
Talk about that at the airport.
I am in charge of completing a solar panel project. I'm the leader of it, and it's just, I want to help the environment, and there's so much unused land at the airport, and since we can't put up like wind farms and those kinds of things, solar was definitely a way that I could help.
Scott, talk about kind of the impact, because it's at the Career Center in Marion, but you really are a regional career center, so you're touching students in multiple high schools.
We are, and we've actually had students come that are from other regional career centers, but since their career center doesn't offer an aviation program, their area allows them to come to Marion.
Yeah, and some of the graduates too, as we were talking off camera, go on and really natural transitions to the Lift Academy, Republic Airways here in Indianapolis, so they're going on to real definitive careers.
Right, so as the instructor, I really try to provide students with real-world connections, and so last year we actually took a field trip to the Lift Academy, and that really sparked a couple of students' interest in going that way. Instead of going to a four-year college like a Purdue or an Indiana State to get their aviation training, they went right into the Lift Academy, which will allow them to fly, then be flight instructors, and then build their hours that way.
Yeah, Emma, you're a senior, and you've got definite plans. Talk about where you want to go and what you want to major in.
I've applied to a lot of schools, a lot of colleges, but a lot of colleges don't offer aviation management, but Purdue does, and that's my #1 school. I really hope to get in there, so I would definitely like to be in the aviation field.
Well, good luck to you, Emma and Scott. Thanks for being here as well. Innovative program happening in Marion to get professionals into that field, which is in high demand. So thank you both.
Yep.
Thank you.
Still to come, perspective on the biggest stories of the week from our panel of insiders. But first, Indianapolis will host the NBA All-Star Weekend in 2021. Leading up to the event, the host committee has announced a $1 million legacy initiative focused on youth-serving nonprofits throughout Indiana. Committee co-chair Rafael Sanchez joined Bill Benner on Inside Indiana Sports.
A great announcement this week at the governor's residence on the basketball courts with kids and basketballs and mascots. It was a great day, but the essence was this really outstanding legacy program. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, you couldn't ask for better weather the other day, but it's a great program. Very excited about it. It's a chance to really make a community impact in statewide effort, giving $1 million away to 21 youth-serving organizations across the state, and we're going to be very intentional about that. We want to make sure that even though the game is played in central Indiana, that communities around the state have a chance to benefit well after the game is played.
Yeah, and you know, the good example would be the Chase Near East Side Legacy Center after the Super Bowl. But this, again, throughout the state, and what do people have to propose?
So what we're doing is it's a grant application process that they will have to go to Pacers.com and search for All-Star, and they can find the application there. But we're focusing on health and wellness and education. So think about a basketball court, playground equipment, maybe a STEM lab. You know, obviously we've given some parameters, but we really want to hear from community-based organizations about what ideas they have. And we're going to try really hard to leverage other existing dollars that those communities might have to really just maximize the opportunity. And again, being very intentional, making sure that citizens around the state feel the love from the NBA All-Star Game.
Yeah, for our statewide audience, it's important. This is not just an Indianapolis effort.
Correct.
This is going to reach all corners of the state.
Yeah, and another thing that's a really important component of it is this rising star element. So we're going to have, for each one of the 21 projects across the state, we're going to have a youth that will serve as the honorary co-chair, a graduate of the class of 2021, to build on the theme. And that person will be involved and hopefully engage other youth in that community to participate in one way, shape, or form into that community project. So it's really going to be all hands on deck and really trying to activate that community.
And that young person will have to, I mean, he will be absolutely the best of the best, I would assume, coming from those communities.
Yeah, so what we're asking is that those community-based youth-serving organizations that receive the grant will have a chance to nominate 3 local students for the Rising Star, and then the committee will ultimately decide. But what a great opportunity to engage youth and serving youth in this way. I couldn't be more excited.
And there will be a scholarship component to that.
Yeah, so we're looking into how can we then build upon that and add a scholarship component to that. So those details have to be hammered out, but again, just a tremendous opportunity.
You've been involved on a volunteer basis and a leadership basis a long time. Again, going back to what we said at the beginning, this is so much a part of what Indianapolis does that sets it apart from other cities when we do these events.
It's in our DNA, and I think that this is going to be the best all-star that the NBA has ever seen. And we've got the right people with the right heart serving on our committee, and we couldn't be more excited, Bill.
And an important component of the funding is coming from the championship fund, which is not only just the All-Star game, but also the Final Four that year, and then the college football championship game the following January.
Correct. So it's just another example of how this community comes together and really looks for ways to really optimize everything. So the Indy Championship Fund is basically that fundraising arm for all those major marquee sporting events that are going to come into town. That way, each of those local organizing committees can just focus on execution and not worry about fundraising the dollars.
All right. Well, Rafael Sanchez, thanks for being on, taking your time away from your day job as president of private banking for Old National. So thanks for being on the show.
I appreciate it.
And finally, our panel of insiders weighs in on Indiana's top business stories. This week's panel includes Veteran Strategies President and CEO Robert Vane, Krieg DeVault partner Deborah Daniels, and Tilson President Brent Tilson.
Kind of a global edition, I think, of the Insiders. Deborah, I think more examples of Indianapolis, and Indiana's growing global presence. We had Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger on the show at the top of the show this week, talking about trade trips just back from India, China, Japan, South Korea.
Right.
These are becoming more the norm now than the exception. And seem to be paying off with investment. Just your take on Indiana's status in this global economy now. Seems the profile and the recognition seems to be increasing.
Absolutely. I think the governor said there are over 1,000 companies in Indiana that are owned by foreign interests, and so they're providing a lot of jobs. Mm-hmm. So it's important to us to be involved. Japan is the real leader, and we've been courting them since the early 80s. And
back then it was different. I mean,
yes.
there was a lot of
Poor John Mutz.
Right. The gubernatorial election, that was an issue. The Subaru of Isuzu. It was Subaru Isuzu at the time. Now Subaru of Indiana Automotive. But yeah, it was a huge political issue, and it was not popular to be going overseas to court jobs.
Well, it's easy from a political bomb throwing perspective to say, why aren't you paying attention to Elkhart instead of being in India? But anyone who takes a broader, longer strategic view knows that there are tons of Indiana cities who are thriving because of overseas investment. I was communications director at the Indiana Republican Party when Governor Daniels flew back from Japan to announce the Honda plant. What has that done for that section? So it's easy to be political about it, but real politicians, real leaders see beyond that and do it anyway. And Greg Ballard's another example with a lot of this investment from India.
Yeah, we had real international focus. And to go back to Bob Orr, because I remember he took a leadership role in placing, at the time, the Department of Commerce putting international offices, which was really innovative at the time. Yeah, right, exactly. And that, I think, continues to pay dividends today because of our reputation globally.
I think it does, and I think there's a lot more public acceptance of this now.
Yeah.
You know, back then it sounded pretty strange.
Yeah, right. Brent, your business, your leader in the state, but in Greenwood, in that part of the state, and it's become these international companies have become so important for communities all over the state.
Oh, absolutely. So take, for example, Cummins and their expansion, their new third headquarters, so to speak, in Greenwood coming up. But they also have, a plant overseas. And I know that the governor visited there and had a chance to visit with them. And so we see this ongoing economic development across the world, and we have to be engaged. It's kind of like we chuckle about the NBA and the fact that the Pacers played in India.
Right.
And the audience, 1.3 billion people in India. So the NBA is figuring it out, and so do we as a state. We have to be engaged worldwide because there's more out there than just us here in the States.
Yeah. Also, another example of that growing global presence. Big news announced this week at the Indianapolis Zoo. The zoo will be home to the Global Center for Species Survival. This was an idea that outgoing CEO Michael Crowther had a few years ago. It was signed, a deal was signed this week with a major, really the most influential wildlife preservation group in the world to create this and put this in Indianapolis. There's going to be any number of things happening, including conferences and events, all tied to this global species survival.
And that, coupled with Michael's other great idea, the Indianapolis Prize, which is the preeminent wildlife preservation event in the world, really makes Indianapolis the center for wildlife preservation, species survival. This is going to be very important. I think it's going to help with other economic development, and it's going to help attract young, talented people here.
Yeah. Your take on that, Rob, because it is, and again, to combine that with the Indianapolis Prize, it's pretty big.
The last point Deborah made is right on the money. All it takes is 10 seconds on Facebook to realize young folks love their animals. It's bigger and better than ever. And if you don't attract young talent, you wither on the vine. I mean, every mayor has said that and tried to do that. And this is an important part. You want families to live here? They like the zoo.
Well, and it's not just business. So you now are venturing into the nature space and animals. And so we're not just Indianapolis being all about business across the world. It's like, no, how do we be engaged worldwide in things that are important in many facets?
Yeah. A couple of big economic development announcements related this week. In Westfield, a community that has really focused on attracting youth sports and has made that a big business focus. Gordon Food Service, the big organization that has something like 17 of these big distribution centers around the country, putting their first one here in Indianapolis, a major operation. Initially 200 jobs, looks to grow to 400 over the next 5 years. So a different kind of business for Westfield.
It is a different kind, but what's interesting is the technology that they're putting into this facility. So many of these plants today isn't just picking stuff off shelves. You have a lot of sophistication, a lot of robotics, and the things that they're going to be putting in this is going to be very exciting.
Venture capital has always been a challenge in Indiana. It seems to continue to get better. Amplify, the technology company, Santiago Jaramillo, $15 million Series B round of funding, which is big.
It's been great. It's been fun watching him. I've been working with Santiago a long time in different businesses, and this one hit, and it's going. He's doing a great job, and the money's coming around it, and that's what money does. They come around great ideas, and Amplify is doing it.
It is Indianapolis in particular, but Indiana in general, beginning to get that reputation out there that, hey, there are some pretty cool ideas happening here, pretty smart people, companies that can scale up, and so the investment dollars are beginning to flow in a little more.
Well, first off, it's the wisdom of a past governor to create the IEDC and emphasize this sort of effort to beyond just the United States, just the Midwest. That's paying dividends, continues. It won't ever stop as long as Indiana continues to modernize and be relevant. But there's a theme of everything that we've talked about on the Insiders, and I'll say it very quickly. Good news, good news, good news, good news. The good news is still coming.
Yeah, it is. And the academic, you had something.
Well, the other thing about this is that, these are companies that are using technology to solve big problems. So you've got, how do you attract, engage, and retain talent? Well, that's what they're working on. And the company in Fort Wayne that is focused on basically solving food problems through technology.
Yeah.
Well, if I may add, Gary, what's interesting is with the likes of Salesforce and the other tech companies who have located and continue to grow here, we're bringing the talent into the state that we need. So that talent then provides the opportunity for these tech companies to get the people they need. And the other advantage we have is we have an affordable, place to live. And so these people can come from the coast and do so much more here and put that capital to use and get a lot more from it.
Yeah, and maybe one of the hardest questions to answer is, why not Indiana?
Exactly.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, absolutely. The academic pipeline we have here, both public and private institutions, a very big part of that. Butler University announced a major new strategic focus, also a big $200 million plus fundraising initiative. So Butler is really looking at the future with a very strategic eye.
And they're doing it for the right reasons. Universities are having to broaden their base. They're having to look at non-traditional students. We were talking before about how there's going to be a cliff of the traditional students about 2026, directly related apparently to the recession of 2008. And so, one, you need to broaden out and reach these non-traditional students. Two, you need to find ways to connect students to the workforce much earlier in their college career.
Well, a great example is the digital marketing. Those students that go to digital marketing, by the time they get out of their freshman year, it's already changed 3 times. And so the universities have to evolve and come up with certificate programs and other things that are not just a 4-year bachelor degree. They have to find things that meet the workforce where they are and meet the needs of the companies.
Transitioning from students to beer, I guess that's a good transition. But some Hoosier breweries did very well at the huge beer awards competition out in Denver. And it's interesting, Sun King was the big winner, I think the biggest winner, 3 golds and a silver. But I look at, Sun King and so many of these upland, there are a lot of these breweries that have popped up and have done very well, not only creating great product, but a business model that works.
Unbelievably, this came to me because I don't drink alcohol and never have. But as long as the industry's growing and everyone's being responsible, then more power to them. May I do one quick shout out?
Sure.
A very good friend of many of us is ill, and we wish him the best. And that's P.E. McAllister, who's done so much for this city.
He certainly has.
We love you, P.E., and we hope you feel better soon.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
That's a great way to end this segment of the Insiders as well, Robert. So Robert Vane, Deborah Daniels, also Brent Tilson. Thanks one and all for joining us.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.